Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 310 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we must get off this podcast.
But we can't, not without wings. Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Matt, the Nerd of the Rings, and I'm here with the man of the West, who has no intention of dropping a dozen feet from anywhere, Alan Sisto.
I just break my other collarbone, Matt. That's definitely not going to be good. I certainly don't want to drop into a pile of foot-long thorns. Foot-long subs, maybe. I don't know. That might be cushion the landing a little bit. Folks, join us as Frodo and Sam make their way into the Morgai in the first part of The Land of Shadow, the second chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
Folks, no matter how you got here, you're all welcome here in the common room. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and terrible jokes along the way.
Maybe mediocre jokes on a good day. We love deep dives into the lore, discussing our favorite themes, and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, like a couple friends chatting at the pub, and we're glad you've joined us.
Indeed we are, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time to see what else is going on, and it's all happening over on the Pelennor right now, in Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth. Now, there is a lot happening today. It's March 15th, and before we get to the obvious things happening over at Minas Tirith, I do want to remind you that Sauron's forces were attacking in other places as well, and two of those battles took place today. Now, Sean and I chatted about this in episode 290 late last season. The first battle is the second of three assaults on Lorien, and it's the second one that is defeated. There's no other information on that one. But we also have an event that the Tale of Years calls the Battle Under the Trees. That takes place in the woodland realm of King Thranduil, father of Legolas. And we read, in the north also, there had been war and evil. The realm of Thranduil was invaded, and there was long battle under the trees and great ruin of fire. But in the end, Thranduil had the victory. Well, that's a good thing.
Another of the moments happening on March 15th is something you and I talked about back in episode 283 last season. It's the moment when the Witch-king breaks the gate of Minas Tirith and faces off against Gandalf. And this time, I get to read it. Here we go. In rode the Lord of the Nazgûl. A great black shape against the fires beyond he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgûl, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all fled before his face. All save one. There waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth endured the terror. Unmoving, steadfast as a graven image in Rath-Dinnen. "You cannot enter here," said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. "Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back! Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go." The Black Rider flung back his hood, and behold, he had a kingly crown, and yet upon no head visible was it set. The red fires shone between it and the mantled shoulders vast and dark. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. "Old fool," he said. "Old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain." And with that he lifted high his sword, and flames ran down the blade. Gandalf did not move, and in that very moment, away behind in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. Shrill and clear he crowed, recking nothing of wizardry or war, welcoming only the morning that in the sky far above the shadows of death was coming with the dawn. And as if in answer there came from far away another note. Horns, horns, horns. In dark Mindoloan sides they dimly echoed. Great horns of the north wildly blowing. Rohan had come at last.
Oh man, that passage never never stops giving me chills. I don't care how many times you've read it. And by the way, your Witch King voice was fantastic. I got chills there too. That was good. That was good. Now, of course, ordinarily when we'd read a passage like this, that would mean I'd get to read a highlight or two from the arrival of the Rohirrim. Clearly an event that also took place on March 15th. But we're going to read some of that in the chapter discussion tonight instead. So I'm going to set that aside and go to a moment in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields that I had to cede to Sean. It's somebody else also facing off against that same overconfident Witch King. Then, out of the blackness in Merry's mind, he thought that he heard Durnhelm speaking. Yet now the voice seemed strange, recalling some other voice that he had known. "Begone, foul Dwimmerlike, Lord of Carrion! Leave the dead in peace!" A cold voice answered. "Come not between the Nazgûl and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye." A sword rang as it was drawn. "Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may." "Hinder me, thou fool? No living man may hinder me." Then Merry heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Durnhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. "But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Eowyn I am, Eowman's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Begone if you be not deathless. For living a dark undead, I will smite you if you touch him." Go Eowyn!
Man, I never get tired of hearing the Witch King talk. He has
seriously.
Oh,
unless it's the Rankin-Bass Return of the King Witch-king.
Hinder me?
Yeah.
No man may hinder me.
That's pretty good.
Oh, man. Well, I had to watch that film more than once for the book.
You should do the rest of the podcast episode in that voice.
Oh, the show's going to last about 5 minutes before my voice is gone. So what else is happening on March 15th? Matt?
Yeah. Also on March 15th, the Steward Denethor took his own life. "But I say to thee, Gandalf Mithrandir, I will not be thy tool. I am steward of the house of Anarion. I will not step down to be the dotard chamberlain of an upstart. Even were his claim proved to me, still he comes but of the line of Isildur. I will not bow to such a one, last of a ragged house long bereft of lordship and dignity." "What then would you have?" said Gandalf, "if your will could have its way." "I would have things as they were in all the days of my life," answered Denethor, "and in the days of my long fathers before me. To be the lord of this city in peace, and leave my chair to a son after me, who would be his own master and no wizard's pupil. But if doom denies this to me, then I will have not, neither life diminished, nor love halved, nor honor abated." "To me it would not seem that a steward who faithfully surrenders his charge is diminished in love or in honor," said Gandalf. "And at the least you shall not rob your son of his choice while his death is still in doubt." At those words, Denethor's eyes flamed again, and taking the stone under his arm, he drew a knife and strode toward the bier. But Baragon sprang forward and set himself before Faramir. "So," cried Denethor, "thou hast already stolen half my son's love. Now thou stealest the hearts of my knights also, so that they rob me wholly of my son at the last. But in this at least thou shalt not defy my will, to rule my own end." And I think we remember how that part of the story ends.
Yeah, we do. No doubt about that. I'm glad we didn't have to get that far. Now, in stark contrast to Denethor's passing and other of the events of March 15th, was the death of Theoden, and very, very different death. Theoden opened his eyes, and they were clear, and he spoke in a quiet voice, though labored. "Farewell, Master Hornbittler," he said. "My body is broken. I go to my fathers, and even in their mighty company, I shall not now be ashamed. I felled the black serpent, a grim morn, and a glad day, and a golden sunset." Merry could not speak, but wept anew. "Forgive me, Lord," he said at last, "if I broke your command, and yet have done no more in your service than to weep at our parting." The old king smiled. "Grieve not, it is forgiven. Great heart will not be denied. Live now in blessedness, and when you sit in peace with your pipe, think of me. For never now shall I sit with you in Medjugorje as I promised, or listen to your herb lore." He closed his eyes, and Merry bowed beside him. Presently he spoke again. "Where is Eomer? For my eyes darken, and I would see him ere I go. He must be king after me, and I would send word to Eowyn. She would not have me leave her, and now I shall not see her again, dearer than daughter." And then later, but Eomer leaped from the saddle, and grief and dismay fell upon him as he came to the king's side and stood there in silence. Then one of the knights took the king's banner from the hand of Guthlaf, the banner-bearer, who lay dead, and he lifted it up. Slowly, Theoden opened his eyes. Seeing the banner, he made a sign that it should be given to Eomer. "Hail, King of the Mark," he said. "Ride now to victory. Bid Eowyn farewell." And so he died, and knew not that Eowyn lay near him. That breaks my heart every single time, that he doesn't know Eowyn's right there.
Yeah.
That somebody, she's right here. And you know, there's a moment there, by the way, where he tells Merry, "Grieve not, it is forgiven, great heart will not be denied." Every time he says that to Merry, I hear him saying that to Eowyn. Because she's done the same exact thing.
Yeah.
He absolutely would not have, not even for a moment, held her actions against her.
Oh, no. Of
No,
course not.
I mean,
Yeah.
he would not have chastised her. "Well, you should have stayed home." You know, I mean, I know that's what he told her to do in the first place, but no, great heart will not be denied. And that applies to her as much as it does to Merry, for sure. Man.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much going on this day.
Huge busy day. I know. So much.
We didn't even talk about the arrival of Aragorn, his reunion with Eomer on the battlefield.
Right.
Or the ultimate victory of the Battle of Pelennor Fields. I have to say, Eomer goes on a roller coaster of emotions this day.
Oh, he sure does. He sure does. Exactly. I mean, my goodness, he's ready to die when he sees those black sails coming up. He sets up that last stand, that shield wall on the top of some small little rise in the field. He's ready to go. He's singing a song of death. And then it's Aragorn. He's like, woohoo! Yeah, I mean, so much. And then not to mention, of course, the king and his sister. And I mean, so much is happening.
And then, of course, you know, his sister ends up not being dead as he
Imrahil, being the genius that he is. Do y'all not have any doctors out here?
Yeah.
How about a combat medic? We'll take a combat medic, please. No, but we've got this really talkative old lady that knows about herbs.
Yeah, she's great.
She is great. Yorith,
she's she'll get on your nerves a little bit, but she's got some wisdom.
She does. Probably more than the actual herb master, who himself is a little bit too talkative, if you ask me.
That's right. Well, March 15th has been a busy day so far, but let's go ahead and get into tonight's discussion.
Yeah.
Alan, would you like to start us off?
I absolutely will. Sam had just wits enough left to thrust the vial back into his breast. "Run, Mr. Frodo," he cried. "No, not that way. There's a sheer drop over the wall. Follow me." Down the road from the gate they fled. In 50 paces, with a swift bend round a jutting bastion of the cliff, it took them out of sight from the tower. They had escaped for the moment. Cowering back against the rock, they drew breath, and then they clutched at their hearts. Perching now on the wall beside the ruined gate, the Nazgûl sent out its deadly cries. All the cliffs echoed. In terror, they stumbled on. Soon the road bent sharply eastward again and exposed them for a dreadful moment to view from the tower. As they flitted across, they glanced back and saw the great black shape upon the battlement. Then they plunged down between high rock walls in a cutting that fell steeply to join the Morgul road. They came to the way meeting. There was still no sign of orcs, nor of an answer to the cry of the Nazgûl, but they knew that the silence would not last long. At any moment now, the hunt would begin. "This won't do, Sam," said Frodo. "If we were real orcs, we ought to be dashing back to the tower, not running away. The first enemy we meet will know us. We must get off this road somehow." "But we can't," said Sam. "Not without wings." "All right, then. Wings. Coming right up, Sam."
So we picked up here exactly where you and Dawn left off last time. And that's right, as Frodo and Sam have shattered the spirit of those terrifying Watchers.
That's right. Man, that was good stuff.
Not only did the wall come tumbling down, but the Watcher's alarm went off again.
Seriously, it's like the car alarm down the street. It just doesn't stop.
Just
every
keeps
night.
Going. That's right.
In the morning, too. Yeah.
But this time it's answered by a ghastly shriek from a descending Nazgûl.
Yeah, see, now it's a lot more serious than the first time when Sam broke in.
Yes.
But now we get to this chapter, right? Sam gets the vial back into his pocket because, well, let's face it, there's nothing like a massive bright light from a Silmaril masquerading as a star to grab the attention of a ring wraith.
That's right. But he also manages to stop Frodo from going in the wrong direction as they flee. And obviously flee they do, managing to get out of sight in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, 50 paces, not that bad. I mean, 50 Hobbit paces can't even be that far, really. It was a close call, but they did manage to escape that current, very, very intense crisis, and they try to gather themselves before moving on.
Yeah, and I love this moment. The cry of the Nazgûl echoes around them, terrifying them before they continue.
You know, I have to say, the fact that, you know, he's doing his typical cry, and it freezes them for a moment, right? In terror, they continue. It's kind of a surprise they can even move after the ring wraith's cries. I sort of want to talk through that a little bit, right? It feels like the cries of the Nazgûl have been getting more and more powerful. I mean, there's the ones the hobbits experienced in the Shire, but then we get to the ones that literally froze the men of Minas Tirith where they stood. What do you think? Why does this not seem to terrify Frodo and Sam into total abject frozen terror, right? They're able to move.
Right.
What do you think the deal is?
Well, you know, some I could see arguing like, well, this isn't their first rodeo with Nazgûl cries. Maybe they're starting to get used to it.
Again. Yeah.
After a while, it just gets annoying, you know?
Yeah, it's no longer a jump scare. It's like, fine. All right, I'll scream. Ah.
I mean, the other thought is, you know, maybe this is a cry that's not necessarily meant for them directly, so it's not zeroed in on them.
That's a good point. I think it's the purpose of it too, right? This is clearly some sort of a call, like an alarm, right? This is, all right, everybody over here now, orcs. We got to look for some bad guys that snuck in. This isn't a weaponized shriek like they do when they scream down on Minas Tirith, freeze the men of the city. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. It's not a terror cry. It's an alert, right? It's
right. Yeah,
that makes sense. So as Frodo and Sam move down the road, though, they do get exposed, at least briefly, and they look up, they see the Nazgûl over on the parapet, but they do manage to at least get through this spot without being seen, thank goodness, because it would have been really rough to be chased from here, especially when one of your guys is on wings.
Yeah, they've still got a ways to go.
Exactly. They're nowhere near Mount Doom, as we'll get to, especially, I think, next episode when we start talking about the distances, but they head to the main road out of the Morgul Pass.
Yeah, they get to where the roads come together, and there's no indication of orcs or of any response at all to the Nazgûl's cry, but they know that that's not going to last.
Well,
that's
the
not
orcs
going to be
will
the
show
case
up,
for
right?
very long. Yeah. Frodo brings up a good point here. Yeah, we might look like orcs, but we're not acting like them as
That's
they're
true.
running away from the tower.
I mean, the orcs, there's no doubt from some of the conversations we've heard and ones that we'll hear later, the orcs aren't exactly fans of the Nazgûl, but they know better than to try to run the other direction, right? They would be coming to this call, heeding the call. They'd be heading to the tower instead of away from it. So we've got to, I don't know, what does Frodo say? Get off the road. This is definitely time for them to figure out how to get off the road. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sam points out that that's just not an option right now unless they get those fictitious Balrog wings.
Thank you. Fictitious Balrog wings. I appreciate that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're on a bridge. There's nothing they can do. They can't just get off the road and climb down into the shrubbery beneath. They are stuck. They've got to get to one end of the bridge or the other, and they're certainly not going to go back to the tower. But we will come back to Frodo and Sam here in just a moment, just after this quick break. Now, we'll get back to whether it's Balrog wings or maybe wings courtesy of Red Bull. But before we do, we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast and follow the page to get the news and episode releases. But you're going to want to join the group to get involved in some really great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at Prancing Pony Pod.
And hey, listen, if you want daily Tolkien content, please check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my new short format daily show. I do stuff from Mailbag Mondays to Third Age Thursdays and Silmarillion Saturdays. You'll love it. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media. Let's go ahead and get back to the chapter, though. And poor Frodo and Sam stuck on that bridge. Matt, how about you pick up where I left off?
All right. The eastern faces of the Ephel Duath were sheer, falling in cliff and precipice to the black trough that lay between them and the inner ridge. A short way beyond the way meeting, after another steep incline, a flying bridge of stone leapt over the chasm and bore the road across into the tumbled slopes and glens of the Morgai. With a desperate spurt, Frodo and Sam dashed along the bridge, but they had hardly reached its further end when they heard the hue and cry begin. Away behind them, now high above on the mountainside, loomed the tower of Cirith Ungol, its stones glowing dully. Suddenly its harsh bell clanged again, and then broke into a shattering peal. Horns sounded, and now from beyond the bridge end came answering cries. Down in the dark trough, cut off from the dying glare of Orodruin, Frodo and Sam could not see ahead. But already they heard the tramp of iron-shod feet, and upon the road there rang the swift clatter of hooves. "Quick, Sam, over we go!" cried Frodo. They scrambled on to the low parapet of the bridge. Fortunately, there was no longer any dreadful drop into the gulf, for the slopes of the Morgai had already risen almost to the level of the road, but it was too dark for them to guess the depth of the fall. "Well, here goes, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Goodbye." He let go. Frodo followed. And even as they fell, they heard the rush of horsemen sweeping over the bridge and the rattle of orc feet running up behind.
So now we learn exactly why it is that they can't get off the road without wings. Balrog, fictional wings, wings of shadow, wings of metaphor, or even wings from Red Bull. It just doesn't matter. They obviously without wings are not getting off this road. They're on a mountain face, and there are steep inclines on the road.
And a flying bridge going across a chasm to the Morgai.
Well, yeah, that's the real problem, isn't it? It's the bridge.
Yeah. Now, recall that the Morgai, meaning black fence, is a second range of the mountains, much lower than the Ephel Duath that runs in parallel, sort of like an inner wall.
Exactly. Now, this bridge that goes over to the Morgai is what enables them to cross over from the east side of the Ephel Duath to that inner range. And by the way, before we go any further, I just want to say that a flying bridge is not a bridge with wings. It is simply a bridge that doesn't have any supports in between the two ends. So you think of like a single arch bridge instead of a bridge with columns in the middle. So there's no additional support, just the buttresses at either end. That's a flying bridge.
Now, our two heroes sprint across the bridge just in time to hear the hue and cry.
Love that phrase.
Yeah, that's a really interesting phrase. I know I've heard it 1,000 times in my life, but never stopped to dig into what it means, beyond the obvious, a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But Alan, I understand you've done some work on this. Now, what do you have?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this is a phrase like you. I've heard this a million times. I just think of the hue and cry of my children on a Saturday morning when I wish to be sleeping or something like that. That's all I think of. But that's actually not the origination of the phrase. It began actually in common law, and it was a way for people to obtain the assistance of bystanders in stopping a criminal. We can go all the way back to the Statute of Winchester in 1285 for an example. That required that anybody who witnessed a crime, not just a constable, but even a regular citizen, shall make hue and cry, and that anyone who heard the shouting was then legally required to assist in the pursuit of the criminal until they were arrested and taken to the sheriff. Now, it's really interesting stuff. The Online Etymology Dictionary, which is one of my favorite websites naturally, explains that the phrase is late 13th century as an Anglo-French legal term, and that the medieval Latin version was hutasium et clamor.
Now, what's funny about this is that it's like so many other legal phrases where both words mean the exact same thing or very close to it, like cease and desist, null and void, terms and conditions, and so many more.
Lawyers paid by the word. Apparently that's been a thing for hundreds of years. Yeah. Now, for many of these legal doublets, the reason wasn't because lawyers wanted to get paid by the word, true or not. The reason was actually linguistic in origin, and it was because often one word would have its origins in Old English and into the English language, and the other would have actually come from usually Latin through French. And so what would happen is they would use the terms from both languages in order to make sure people understood what they were talking about. I say that, and that's true for so many of these doublets, but not for hue and cry, because both words in this case come from Old French. Hue likely comes from Old French hur, which means to shout, while cry also comes from Old French crier, meaning to cry. So it's always been this redundant phrase that means an outcry and cry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now that we understand hue and cry correctly, we can see that this isn't merely a bunch of chaotic noise that Frodo and Sam are hearing. It's an alarm.
That's right. The Nazgûl is saying, y'all have a legal obligation now, under the law of the Black Land, to pursue these criminals and make sure they are arrested and brought to the sheriff.
That's right. It's a call to everyone within the reach of the Nazgûl's cry and the bell and horns to search for the criminals, in this case, our Hobbit heroes. And sure enough, they hear the answer, the cries of orc voices, the sound of armored feet, and even the sound of hoofs.
Now, I have to say that last bit is interesting. I've never really thought of Sauron as having a lot of mounted forces. We don't hear about his troops, orcs particularly, on horses. We don't hear about cavalry units. The cavalry units that we see are southern units or easterling units perhaps, and certainly then we have the Mumak units that are also not native to Mordor. So clearly, though, he has some interior forces that are mounted. I'm going to guess that they're likely to be scouts of some kind because we never see cavalry charge. We're not talking about heavy cavalry here. What are your thoughts? What's your speculation here? I mean, orcs on horseback. It can't be orcs on horseback. They wouldn't fit. The horses would be too big.
Yeah. Would it be, perhaps some black Numenorians or some
sort of evil men, maybe?
Yeah, some evil men. I mean, that we're not talking Narnia here, so I don't think there's any centaurs or minotaurs or any of the
that have been
tars
interesting
running around.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to imagine. Okay, maybe they're ponies and not horses. Okay, so maybe orcs can ride them just like hobbits would ride ponies. So that's one option. The other option is to have men of some kind of evil men on horseback, but attached to a unit of orcs because the orcs are coming right behind. I can't imagine that either. I mean, because it's clear that, Sauron has these forces coming from other countries, other people groups, right? The Haradrim and the Easterlings and things. And they're all queuing up in Mordor, getting ready for the next attack, as we'll see, but they're not mingling together. You're not having a mixed unit with men riding horseback and orcs on foot. So
that's true.
I don't know. It's just a weird little thing to think of Sauron as having his own mounted troops, but
yeah, between the steed of the mouth of Sauron and the fell beasts, who knows what kind of creatures
that
Sauron
is a good point.
Has his disposal.
That is a very good point.
Now, even though they're still on the bridge, Frodo knows it's time to go over the edge.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no choice here. You can't get caught at this point. And note now, by the way, I think this is really interesting. We'll see this going forward. It is now Frodo taking the lead and making the decisions, assuming command. Sam was very much in charge from the moment he rescued Frodo until their escape. And that's because we were in an area that Sam knew. It was his area of expertise, if you will. But now that we're past that point and we're in an area where neither of them know anything, it's Frodo who leads. So we resume the usual order of things.
They know they're not in the middle with a massive and certainly fatal plunge into the chasm here.
Right.
But it's so dark they can't see just how far they're going to fall.
No.
Which has got to be a little nerve-wracking.
I think,
but the alternative is certain capture by the orcs and torment by the Nazgûl, so you take your chances there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, 100% chance of death and torment and losing the ring and the quest being over, or whatever chance we have by dropping off the bridge. Because whatever chance that is, it's better than the alternative. Yeah. So Sam says his goodbyes to Frodo. I don't want to downplay this or miss that, by the way. Sam says, goodbye, Mr. Frodo. Here goes, right? Goodbye. This could be the end.
Yeah, that's stuck out to me too. It's not something that is dwelled on or stretched out. It's just like a really quick
blink
goodbye.
And you miss it moment, but yeah.
But both Sam and Frodo let go.
Yep.
And just as the horsemen go galloping over the bridge with orcs coming right behind.
Yeah, so it is the rattle of orc feet, and it's horsemen. I've got to figure this one out, but I don't think we get enough of a description of his cavalry forces. So in the part that we did have to skip over reading, we see what happens with their fall. And, despite their fears, reasonable fears, since they can't see the bottom, they fall maybe 12 feet. Now, the text makes it sound like that's not very far. In a drop of no more than a dozen feet. But can we be honest? That's still not a small distance. I mean, I don't want to fall 12 feet. And I'm, almost 6 foot, right? 5'10". So if you're only 4 foot tall to begin with, proportionally, that's like a guy like us falling 18 feet. That's a freaking long fall. Yeah.
Yeah. But instead of landing on rocks, they land in a bunch of thorn-infested bushes.
Yeah.
Which I guess is better, maybe a
better
little
than
bit.
The rocks, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, better than the rocks. So Sam whispers once the orcs have passed, his surprise that anything at all grows in Mordor. But that, of course, if anything would, it would be something this nasty.
That's right. And he says, the thorns must be a foot long, which is probably an image not used by Subway in the next marketing campaign. You got a foot long thorn sitting right next to the foot long sandwich. Look, our Subway sandwiches are as long as a Mordor thorn. No,
Mordor thorn. Now, also quite clearly not true, as they've pierced through everything Sam is wearing, but not, through Sam himself.
That's a good point. I mean, if they were foot long thorns, we'd have Frodo and Sam with these things sticking out of their midsections, right? I mean, like a baby xenomorph.
Yeah.
Popping out of Sam's belly. They're sharp, they're nasty, they're unpleasant, but clearly they're not actually a foot long, piercing all the way through their armor and into their flesh. It's just uncomfortable and sharp and scratchy. I mean, look, the only injury we see there is Sam softly sucking a scratched hand.
Yeah.
All right.
Not bad.
It's not bad.
A fairly minor list of horrible things that they've encountered, and I'm sure there's more horrible things yet to encounter. So Alan, why don't you pick us up with the next reading?
With more horrible things that they're going to encounter. All right, fair enough. All right, well, we're going to skip a little bit, and I'm going to pick up a couple paragraphs in. Day was coming again in the world outside, and far beyond the glooms of Mordor, the sun was climbing over the eastern rim of Middle-earth. But here, all was still dark as night. The mountain smoldered, and its fires went out. The glare faded from the cliffs. The easterly wind that had been blowing ever since they left Ithilien now seemed dead. Slowly and painfully they clambered down, groping, stumbling, scrambling among rock and briar and deadwood in the blind shadows, down and down, until they could go no further. At length they stopped and sat side by side, their backs against a boulder. Both were sweating. "If Shagrat himself was to offer me a glass of water, I'd shake his hand," said Sam. "Don't say such things," said Frodo. "It only makes it worse." Then he stretched himself out, dizzy and weary, and he spoke no more for a while. At last, with a struggle, he got up again. To his amazement, he found that Sam was asleep. "Wake up, Sam," he said. "Come on. It's time we made another effort." Sam scrambled to his feet. "Well, I never," he said. "I must have dropped off. It's a long time, Mr. Frodo, since I had a proper sleep. My eyes just closed down on their own." Frodo now led the way, northward as near as he could guess, among the stones and boulders lying thick at the bottom of the great ravine. But presently he stopped again. "It's no good, Sam," he said. "I can't manage it. This mail shirt, I mean, not in my present state. Even my mithril coat seemed heavy when I was tired. This is far heavier. And what's the use of it? We shan't win through by fighting." "But we may have some to do," said Sam. "And there's knives and stray arrows. That Gollum isn't dead, for one thing. I don't like to think of you with naught but a bit of leather between you and a stab in the dark." And that's where we'll stop for now.
Now, in the part Alan skipped, we follow up with Frodo and Sam and the nasty thorns.
Right.
Their cloaks are ripped to shreds before they finally get out. And Frodo continues to take the lead here, telling Sam it's time to get down into the valley and head north.
Now, day does begin somewhere. It's just not here. So it's like, what's that line? It's always 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
It's always sunrise somewhere, just not here. As we're told that even though the sun has risen, it is still dark as night.
Yeah, and as we talked about in the earlier intro, today is March 15th.
Right, so that's what we mean by day begins somewhere. Now, both the chronology, or the scheme, as it's referred to in Hammond and Skull's Reader's Companion, as well as Appendix B, the Tale of Years, are in agreement. Sam rescued Frodo on March 14th, but their escape from the tower didn't take place until March 15th. So it was obviously very, very late at night when Sam found Frodo, and then, the time that it took for them to get, the orc clothes and gear and to get out of the tower took them into March 15th.
And as the sun rises, Mount Doom's fires go out and the wind dies down. And they make their way down the slopes of the Morgai, and this seems a particularly unpleasant place, doesn't it?
Oh, it sure does. This is really just scrambling among the rock and briar and deadwood, blind shadows. This is not a pleasant place. They finally get to the bottom, and as they're resting but also sweating, Sam has a very interesting way of saying how thirsty he is. Oh, good old Shagrat himself. That's right. Yeah. But Frodo, not a fan. Like, please don't remind me how thirsty I am. Can we just not talk about water, please? Yeah.
Yes. Frodo stretches and he's silent for a bit. Surprisingly, Sam falls asleep during the quiet.
Maybe not so surprisingly, but yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's got to be exhausted. He's done a lot of hero work recently.
He really has. That's true.
Frodo wakes him up again in the lead here.
Right.
And says it's time to keep going. Mm-hmm. And Sam's a bit shocked at himself for falling asleep, but then points out it's been a while since he slept properly.
Yeah, it has. And Hammond and Skull actually tell us just how long it has been. They write, excluding the hours he was unconscious at the Undergate during the night of 13th, 14th March, Sam had last slept the night of the 11th and 12th of March and probably well into the 12th of March before entering Shelob's lair. Can we just, that's nearly 3 full days of no sleep. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. It doesn't matter if he was knocked out unconscious for 4 or 5 hours by the Undergate. Being unconscious is not sleep. You do not wake up well rested if you've been knocked out. So the guy is exhausted and he's been running at full steam for 3 full days. I think we can excuse him a little doze.
Yeah, I think that might be the most heroic of Sam's deeds. I know I could not stay awake for 3 straight days.
No. Let alone rescue somebody at the top of a tower and fight orcs and cut off a hand. And,
not to mention a spider.
Yeah, but that too. That's true. This is all before entering Shelob's lair. Wow. Yeah. You're not kidding.
So Frodo leads the way north, picking his way along the bottom of the canyon. But the weight of all his gear is too much, so he
is.
stops and asks, what is the point?
Seriously, why am I wearing all this stuff? Why am I allowing this to weigh me down? As Sam makes a point, he's not wrong, right? He argues that, look, we're not going to complete the quest through fighting, but we're going to have some fights ahead of us. It's very likely, given where we are. And then, interestingly enough, he foreshadows Gollum, and he says, that Gollum isn't dead, for one thing. How does he know that right now? I guess we'll get to that later, huh? Because Frodo doesn't understand how he knows that until they discover that Gollum is alive.
Yeah, I think Sam he understands the rule of TV and film that if you don't see someone die, they're not actually dead.
That's a very good point. If you don't see the corpse,
that's how movies work,
happened.
guys. Come on. Yes.
Now, before we move into the next section, I do want you to read the next bit. I want to point out something that I didn't even put in my notes because, again, I didn't notice until I read out loud. Did you catch how much alliteration, even in these descriptions that we got? Let's see. I'm taking a look at some of these. Stumbling, scrambling, briar, blind, down, down, stopped, sat, side by side, backs against a boulder. I mean, so much of this is just this beautiful alliteration that just feels right. Frodo now led the way northward as near as he could guess. I mean, there's so much.
So much.
And it's so subtle until you read it out loud. And then you're like, wow, that is really cool. And it just, again, I think it just adds to the atmosphere. It builds this sort of, I don't know, it just ties things in together beautifully. Fantastic stuff.
It's poetic.
Yeah, it really, really is. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and have you pick up exactly where I left off.
Look here, Sam, dear lad, said Frodo. I am tired, weary, I haven't a hope left. But I have to go on trying to get to the mountain as long as I can move. The ring is enough. This extra weight is killing me. It must go. But don't think I'm ungrateful. I hate to think of the foul work you must have had among the bodies to find it for me. Don't talk about it, Mr. Frodo, bless you. I'd carry you on my back if I could. Let it go, then. Frodo laid aside his cloak and took off the orc mail and flung it away. He shivered a little. What I really need is something warm, he said. It's gone cold, or else I've caught a chill. You can have my cloak, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. He unslung his pack and took out the elven cloak. How's this, Mr. Frodo? He said. You wrap that orc rag close round you and put the belt outside it. Then this can go over all. It don't look quite orc fashion, but it'll keep you warmer. And I dare say it'll keep you from harm better than any other gear. It was made by the lady. Frodo took the cloak and fastened the brooch. That's better, he said. I feel much lighter. I can go on now. But this blind dark seems to be getting into my heart. As I lay in prison, Sam, I tried to remember the Brandywine and Woody End and the water running through the mill at Hobbiton, but I can't see them now. There now, Mr. Frodo. It's you that's talking of water this time, said Sam. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her, Your ladyship, all we want is light and water. Just clean water and plain daylight. Better than any jewels, begging your pardon. But it's a long way to Lorien.
It is a long way to Lorien. Yeah, very, very long way. Frodo is not having this argument of, well, we might have to fight, right? I mean, it starts out with Frodo basically saying, no, I can't. I'm too tired, Sam. This is just not an option.
Yeah. And it's not that he's ungrateful. He makes a point of thanking Sam for his efforts, but his job is already hard enough. The ring weighs metaphorically a lot, and the extra weight has to go.
Sure does. Yeah.
And Sam, in a moment of foreshadowing, says he'd carry Frodo on his back if he could.
Dear listener, he can and he will. Yeah. Yeah, he does get there. I also have to point out real quick, this mail shirt. We need to remember this because in a couple of episodes, we'll come back to Gollum picking up this mail shirt and it being a key element in his tracking of Frodo. So in a way, it would have been nicer if he could have kept carrying it, but yeah.
Yeah. So Frodo tosses his stuff, then realizes he's a bit cold, either from the weather or a chill.
So he says, look, I need something warm. Honestly, he might as well be ordering Sam to give him his cloak. Come on, Frodo,
Right.
you know better. You can't say something like, well, what I really need is around Sam without Sam bending heaven and Arda to give it to him. That's just how Sam is. Yeah. Well, here, Mr. Frodo, I don't need any of my clothes. You can just take everything I've got.
Yeah, so Sam gives Frodo his own elven cloak since Frodo's was taken by the orcs, which will come into play, which was already came into play, I suppose.
Yeah.
When it's shown to Gandalf and the company at the Black Gate by the mouth of Sauron.
That's right, as we talked about just last season, yeah.
That's right. And while it doesn't exactly look orcish, it will keep him warm. And Sam expects it might even protect him a bit, having been made by Galadriel.
Yeah, and Frodo feels better immediately. And I want to linger here a little bit because I want to kind of discuss or think about or speculate how much of his I feel better is due to the reduction in weight and how much of it might maybe possibly be due to the presence of the elven cloak. Is there maybe just a little bit of elvish magic there? What do you think? What are your thoughts, your opinions on this?
We obviously see that these cloaks are no ordinary cloaks.
Yeah.
And I think it's entirely reasonable to think that there's some of that good old Galadriel magic at hand.
Yeah. This is what your folk call magic. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think the answer is sort of in the text, right? Frodo throws off his orc mail, flings it away. Does he feel better right away? Does he say, oh, I feel so much lighter? No, his first thing is he shivered. What I really need is something warm. And it's only after Sam undoes his pack, takes out the elven cloak, wraps the orc rag around him, and then puts the cloak over everything else and talks too long. Frodo finally fastens the brooch and goes, that's better. Now I feel much lighter. I can go on now. Whatever magic is there, it does seem to be maybe not quite enough.
Yeah, I mean, he is still in the dark heart of Mordor here, and we see that darkness continues to weigh on him.
Exactly. This blind dark seems to be getting into his heart. And it seems more like a literal penetration of the darkness into his memories. It's not just a darkness of spirit, like a despair. This is, I can't even remember things, right? The film talks about this. I don't even remember the taste of strawberries or the feel
strawberries
of grass.
And cream. Yeah.
Right. He's no longer able to remember home. He can't remember the Brandywine. He can't remember the water at the mill or Woody End. Let's talk about what sort of impact that would have, especially when one of the reasons and motivations for him to take the ring and destroy the ring was to save the Shire. And here he's at a point where he's still days away. He's actually still a week away from destroying the ring. And he already is at the point where he can't even remember what he's doing this for. He can't remember the Shire itself.
Yeah, it's got to work against his motivation, like you said, the whole reason being setting out in order to save the Shire.
Yeah.
And then not being able to remember it. It just further exemplifies how, it comes to a point where it's almost as if nothing else exists except the darkness and the hold that the ring has on him.
Exactly. It's a burden already, and now it's an even bigger burden because he doesn't have the image in his mind of what he's doing it for. This is now a test of his will, a test of his ability to just keep moving forward, even though this must be so difficult.
And we see here that now Sam's the one complaining that Frodo's talking about water after that earlier comment about shaking Shagrat.
Of the three things he mentions, two of them are water, the Brandywine and the water. And Sam's like, would you stop with that? Yeah. That's a good point. Then he has one of those, this sort of feels like if I won the lottery, here's what I'd buy sort of moments, right? If only the lady could see or hear us. He's talking about what he would tell Galadriel that he would like. And I love this because I think he realizes Galadriel might be able to do something about it. Yeah,
he says that if he could ask Galadriel, he would want clean water and simple daylight.
Easy stuff, right?
Yeah. And I mean, for Galadriel, she's got all kinds of cool stuff she's hooked them up with. So what's a little water and some daylight,
right. The daylight part might be a little tricky, but maybe she could bring in some water. I don't know.
But then he also laments how far away they are from Lothlorien.
It's a long way to Lorien. When you realize how long it has been and what they have been through since they left Lorien, especially Frodo and Sam here, right? They were with the company as they left Lorien. But it wasn't much longer. It wasn't, maybe a week or so down the Anduin, I think. I'd have to look at the timeline before they end up at Parthgalen and Boromir tries to take the ring. Frodo leaves. Sam catches up to him. It's just been the two of them now for quite some time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've got to think that it's kind of disheartening knowing, like, they were at the Black Gate.
Oh, yeah.
And now, like, all that time in the interim has just been them taking the long way around to where they're starting to get within eyesight of where they were.
Yeah, that's about
like,
right.
all that time ago. So it's got to be a little disheartening.
Definitely see that next week and the week after as they go further north up this little valley between the Ephel-Duath and the Morgai, right? This is an unpleasant place to be, but it is kind of interesting to see that they're basically going back to where they were very close to where they were before. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, with that, Alan, why don't you take us through the last reading here?
I will. And I'm going to skip a paragraph and a little bit more. They stood up, and then they both stared in wonder. Away to their left, southward, against a sky that was turning gray, the peaks and high ridges of the Great Range began to appear dark and black, visible shapes. Light was growing behind them. Slowly it crept towards the north. There was battle far above, in the high spaces of the air. The billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back, their edges tattering as a wind out of the living world came up and swept the fumes and smokes towards the dark land of their home. Under the lifting skirts of the dreary canopy, dim light leaked into Mordor like pale morning through the grimed window of a prison. "Look at it, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Look at it. The wind's changed. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up out in the world there. I wish I could see what is going on." It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the Vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. As Frodo and Sam stood and gazed, the rim of light spread all along the line of the Ephel-Duath. And then they saw a shape, moving at a great speed out of the west, at first only a black speck against the glimmering strip above the mountain tops, but growing until it plunged like a bolt into the dark canopy and passed high above them. As it went, it sent out a long, shrill cry, the voice of a Nazgûl. But this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. "What did I tell you? Something's happening," cried Sam. "The war's going well," said Shagrat, but Gorbag, he wasn't so sure, and he was right there too. "Things are looking up, Mr. Frodo. Haven't you got some hope now?" "Well, no, not much, Sam," Frodo sighed. "That's away beyond the mountains. We're going east, not west. And I'm so tired. And the ring is so heavy, Sam. And I begin to see it in my mind all the time, like a great wheel of fire." Sam's quick spirits sank again at once. He looked at his master anxiously, and he took his hand. "Come, Mr. Frodo," he said. "I've got one thing I wanted, a bit of light. Enough to help us. And yet I guess it's dangerous too. Try a bit further, and then we'll lie close and have a rest. But take a morsel to eat now, a bit of the elves' food. It may hearten you." Oh, man, what a passage that is.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Right now, up until the end when Frodo pokes a hole in Sam's balloon. Yeah.
But I mean, it's still
I know.
The journey we go on in this short period is very powerful. Now, in the part that you skipped, we're told that Frodo senses one of the Nazgûl overhead, and so they hide under a rock, and they're still for some time before Frodo knows it's gone.
Right.
And the sense of dread they exude is so powerful that their absence can be observed.
I think that's interesting, right? I mean, Frodo knows when it's past, not because he can see that it's gone, but because he can feel the absence of terror. Yeah. So after the Nazgûl has gone, this is when we picked up the reading, they stand up, And their jaws drop as they notice light, something they haven't seen
Yeah.
for a long time here.
For a long time, yeah. And they can see it backlighting the mountains as the light moves from south to north.
Exactly. And the narrative gives us this really rich image. I love this, the battle in the air, right? It's the dark clouds of Mordor versus the wind from the west. And Mordor is losing.
Yes.
I love it.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah,
Some good news at last, it feels like. And we get the powerful image of morning through the grimed window of a prison.
I really like that. It makes me think of on fairy stories, right? We talk about escape and how there are some lines in there that, do we blame a prisoner who tries to escape, a prisoner of war who tries to get out? No, he has maybe a duty, arguably, to do that. And even a prisoner who isn't a prisoner of war, do we blame him when he thinks about things other than the concrete walls and the bars of the jail? No, we want them to think of things beyond, the things that make the world real. And the grimed window of a prison reminds us of where we are. We're in Mordor. We're in a place that is essentially a prison. And yet there is a little bit of light. There is a world outside. And it's sort of a preview in a way of a moment we're going to get in the next episode when Sam spots another little light that's well outside this prison. But we'll get to that next week. Here, of course, Sam is the first one to speak. Here is my shocked face. Sam is always the first one to speak. I love him. And he's telling Frodo, look over there, Mr. Frodo, look. I love it.
He actually recognizes it for what it is.
That's
it's
right.
not just a breeze, but something that's moving against Sauron and winning.
Yes.
The darkness here is breaking up.
That is absolutely right. And we're going to take a look at some of these moments. I should say at this moment, as it is replayed in other parts of the text. So the wind out of the living world here is something we see in several moments, all happening around the same time. The first moment we catch a bit of it is at the end of Book 5, Chapter 5, The Ride of the Rohirrim. And we get it at two moments. First, Merry senses it. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt. A change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south, the clouds could be dimly seen as remote gray shapes, rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. And then, of course, we read about the morning again, the light, the wind again, as we see Theoden charging, leading the Rohirrim to battle. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning, and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed. And the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing, that was fair and terrible, came even to the city. Okay. I know I only needed to read the part for morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed. I know. But I couldn't not.
It's such a good part. It's such a good passage.
It really is. Chills every time.
And we often overlook that bit about the morning and the wind from the sea and the removal of the darkness.
We do.
Because we're so caught up by the comparison to Orome the Great and the hoofs of wrath and the Rohirrim singing as they slew. But it's right there, and it's pretty important.
It really is important, but you're right. I know for me, I'm always looking back and I'm hearing that great parataxis, right? And the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hoof. I mean, whoo, wow. It moves with such speed that it is easy to miss these moments, but they're super, super important moments. And it's just a repeat of what Merry sensed. And then what we'll also see happening, the Witch King's none too pleased about this, because at the same time that this charge is about to happen, or is happening, I should say, that darkness is breaking. The Witch King observes in the first few lines of the following chapter, the darkness was breaking too soon before the date that his master had set for it. Fortune had betrayed him for the moment, and the world had turned against him. Victory was slipping from his grasp even as he stretched out his hand to seize it.
And again, later in the same chapter, when the eucatastrophe arrives, but before we know it's a eucatastrophe.
That's right, yeah.
It was even as the day thus began to turn against Gondor and their hope wavered that a new cry went up in the city. It being then mid-morning, and a great wind blowing, and the rain flying north, and the sun shining. Of course, they thought it was the Corsairs of Umbar at that point. Their fate was sealed.
Yeah. I mean, it was, because remember, Éomer was cursing the wind that he had earlier praised. I mean, it's just like, okay, the wind is a great thing, but now it's a bad thing. Of course, it turns out to be a good thing because that same wind is mentioned at the moment of the eucatastrophe. Thus came Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elessar, Isildur's heir, out of the paths of the dead, borne upon a wind from the sea to the kingdom of Gondor. And the mirth of the Rohirrim was a torrent of laughter and a flashing of swords, and the joy and wonder of the city was a music of trumpets and a ringing of bells. And that's the wind that Sam is noticing here. That is the battle in the airs, and we see it so throughout this entire day, all around. It's great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're reminded again here of the date. This is March 15th.
Yeah, it actually tells us in the text it was the morning of the 15th of March, right?
Yeah, and we mentioned that earlier, obviously, in the meanwhile elsewhere in Middle-earth. The sun is rising over the Vale of Anduin. The wind is blowing from the sea.
That's right, but all this good is not entirely without its sorrows and losses. The text even takes us right back to one of those moments. What's happening right now? Theoden is dying on the battlefield right now.
Yeah. And Frodo and Sam, they watch as the entire range of the Ephel Duath is lit up from behind.
Yeah.
But then they see something flying over the mountains. And first, it's a tiny black speck against the light. Mm-hmm. Then it passes above them into the cloud.
That's when they hear the cry of the Nazgûl. But it's not like their usual cry at all. This isn't even like the alarm cry that was, yes, terrifying, but didn't pin them to the wall.
Yes.
Not only does this not cause terror, they recognize it as coming from a place of woe and dismay.
Yes. And it does go kind of back to our theory before where there's different, intents behind these cries and they affect people in different ways. Mm-hmm. I think this is kind of proof into that
That's a good point.
Validity of that theory.
Not all the cries of the Nazgûl are the same. Yeah.
Yes. And we're told that it carries ill tidings for Sauron, news of the Witch King's defeat on the Pelennor.
And that's important because last season I messed up. I speculated, and it looks here like it was incorrect speculation, that this was the spirit of the Witch King himself returning to Sauron, right? Like he's been disembodied, he's been killed, he's going to have to get a new body at some, well, not a new body, but new robes, I guess. I mean, but no, that's not it at all. He was destroyed when Éowyn killed him. The spirit of the Witch King did not return to Sauron, or if it did, it didn't do so visibly. Pretty clear here, this is perhaps a surviving Nazgûl. In fact, Hammond and Skull say that. They say this is likely one of the surviving Nazgûl bringing news of the destruction of the Witch King. So I messed up on that last season. I don't know. We've talked about that. What happens when they die, right?
Yeah.
And the Witch King, okay, did he die or was he some sort of disempowered in some way? The way Sauron was, let's say at the end of the Second Age, when he gets the ring cut off and he basically disappears, he loses much of his power, but he doesn't lose his existence. But I think that might be because
that's
he's a
part
Maiar,
of his nature. Yeah, he's a Maiar.
These are mortal men.
Yes. And I mean, let's acknowledge that whatever difference it might make, it makes a difference of 10 days for the Witch King because one way or another, he's getting destroyed in 10 days, if 10 not days. Already.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it does make me wonder if this is the final, the actual death of the Witch King where his soul would go beyond the circles of the world.
Yeah.
Or is he still tethered because Sauron still
That's the
remains?
Thing. I think there is something to be said for that because we do read a lot about how Sauron has this power over them because of the 9 rings which he holds, right? So he's got the 9 rings, and it's through those rings that he wields power. It's through those rings that the Nazgûl have this stretched existence. So there's something sort of, if I had to guess, if I had to say with any level of certainty what's going on, I think he's a houseless spirit. He has somehow returned to Sauron. Would he ever be able to have power again? I don't know. Sauron would probably have to pour a lot of power into him in order to bring him back into existence, just as Sauron had to take thousands of years to build his own strength back up into having any sort of physical presence as we know that he had. Remember, because Gollum talks about the 9 fingers on, the 4 fingers on the one black hand, it's enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that his spirit can leave Arda until the 9 rings are destroyed. When Barad-dûr is destroyed after the destruction of the One Ring.
I will say, even though, Sauron might be able to eventually, theoretically, bring back the Witch King, it's clear that he is not able to do so in Iluvatar type timing. No. Iluvatar does for Gandalf when he sends him back.
Oh, you need a new body, Let me help you out.
Yeah, let me snap my fingers and make that happen.
Yeah.
Sauron would take much longer because we don't see the Witch King get back into the game.
No, we don't. And like you said, it's only 10 days. So even if he did, hang around as a houseless spirit, that's only going to happen for a little while.
Yeah.
He is doomed, both in a good way and a bad way, to leave the circles of the world here in 10 days, one way or the other. So really interesting question. I definitely botched it last year by thinking this was the Witch King going back. I don't think so. I don't think this is the news of his death.
Yeah. I don't think, he wouldn't even be able to emit a cry at this point.
No.
Now, seeing this, Sam is heartened.
Oh, yeah.
He knows something is happening and it's not good for Sauron.
I don't know what it is, but it's good news for us, right?
It's good news for us. And he tells Frodo of the conversation he'd overheard between Shagrat and Gorbag.
That's right. Now he quotes Shagrat. He's a bit off on the quote, but I can forgive Sam. The actual conversation started with Gorbag saying,
"But the war's on now, and when that's over, things may be easier."
"It's going well, they say."
"They would,"
grunted Gorbag.
"We'll see."
So that's the actual conversation. Pretty close to saying the war is going well. Just it's going well, but it just gave us a chance to read some more orc dialogue.
Yeah. And regardless, these things happening are bringing hope to Sam, and he wants Frodo to share in that hope. Like, come on, Frodo, look up, buck up, guy. But Frodo isn't feeling so much hopeful.
No, he just absolutely bursts that bubble right away. No, these good things, Sam, that's great. They're good things, but they're happening way too far away to be of any help to us here in Mordor. And then he expresses his tremendous and understandable fatigue, right? The ring is weighing him down so much that even these moments of hope just aren't enough to lighten his burden.
Yeah, and for the first time, he describes it as a wheel of fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Frodo would call it this one more time in the next chapter, and the narrative will also call it this once more as Sam observes Frodo as standing stern, untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white, but at its breast it held a wheel of fire.
Now, the wheel of fire is a motif in mythology. It's a repeating motif. It typically represents eternal hellish torture, which, let's be honest, the ring is pretty symbolic of that as well.
Yeah.
Most famously, we see the wheel of fire in the Greek myth of Ixion. I won't go into all the details of what he did to deserve the punishment, but Zeus ordered him to be bound to a winged fiery wheel that was always spinning. Not a pleasant fate. And I have to say, though, one other thing, the Wheel of Fire is also the name of season 5 and one of the episodes of that season of Babylon 5. So go watch the show.
Now, hearing Frodo express his lack of hope has the sort of effect on Sam you'd imagine that it would. It brings him down immediately.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. Sam tries, right? He's brought down, but he doesn't stay down. The first thing he does is takes Frodo's hand and reminds him, look, at least we have some light. It'll help us. Maybe light isn't always a good thing. It's a double-edged sword here. It's a bit of a danger because now it can be revealed, but light helps us. And so he's just trying to find something, anything, to help cheer up Frodo at this point.
And he does think of one thing that might help Frodo regain just a little bit of hope. How about a bite of elvish way bread, lembas?
Ah, lembas bread, which is just bread, really. I mean,
bread.
I come back to that quote, and it's sort of like, well, it's way bread. Another one of these redundancies, but I get it.
It's like Spider-Verse in the Spider-Verse where they say chai tea.
Yeah.
It's just TT.
It's TT, exactly. Yeah. Well, we will see whether this bite of the elvish waybread lembas cheers Frodo up next week. It is so heavy, Matt. I begin to see it in my mind all the time like a great mailbag of fire. What does Bartleman have for us?
Do not recommend storing your mail in a mailbag of fire.
No, that's a very good point. Though it does solve the problem of us having too much mail.
It would, wouldn't it?
Poof, it's all gone. The mailbag of fire has done the job. I mean, has destroyed the entire segment. I'm so sorry.
Well, Chelsea R. in California writes in with an interesting speculative question. Last season, you and Sarah talked about Éowyn's confrontation with the Witch King. Chelsea says this prompted a question for her. If no living man could kill the Witch King, could it be possible that the operative word in that prophecy was supposed to be living rather than man? The thought strikes me, Chelsea says, that elsewhere on the battlefield is an army of men who aren't exactly in full possession of their vital signs. Could it be that a different set of circumstances, Éowyn following Theoden's orders, for instance, might have given the men of Dunharrow a glorious chance of redemption? What might that have looked like, and would Merry still figure in the encounter? Now, this is an interesting question, Alan, and I think I have an idea where we're going to go with this.
I think we do.
What do you say, Alan?
Well, it is an interesting question, but Chelsea, you've done something that honestly I have done before as well, and I'm sure Matt has done it as well, and that is mix up the movies with the books. In the story that Tolkien's written, the dead men of Dunharrow follow Aragorn to Pelargir, where they drive the Corsairs of Umbar along with the rest of the servants of Sauron into the river. After that, we read, the shadow host withdrew to the shore. There they stood silent, hardly to be seen, save for a red gleam in their eyes that caught the glare of the ships that were burning. And Aragorn spoke in a loud voice to the dead men, crying, Hear now the words of the heir of Isildur. Your oath is fulfilled. Go back and trouble not the valleys ever again. Depart and be at rest. And thereupon the king of the dead stood out before the host and broke his spear and cast it down. Then he bowed low and turned away, and swiftly the whole gray host drew off and vanished like a mist that is driven back by a sudden wind.
And that took place on March 13th, 2 days before Aragorn, accompanied not by the dead men, but forces from the lands of southern Gondor, arrived at the Harland to join the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
Right.
So they weren't on that battlefield, but what the heck? Let's have fun with this anyway.
Of course. Let's
What if the men of Dunharrow were on the battlefield the way Peter Jackson's films portrayed them? Could that prophecy have applied to them?
Oh, I hate being this guy. I'm the stickler. I'm the one who's got to point out all the little things. See, here's the problem. The Witch King remembers the prophecy incorrectly. That's not actually the prophecy itself. He does specifically say, as I got to read in the intro segment, hinder me, thou fool, no living man may hinder me. In fact, I should read that in the voice of the Rankin-Bass Witch-king, just for fun.
Hinder me, thou fool, no living man may hinder me.
I'm sorry.
Everyone's rushing to get the Rankin-Bass.
Yeah, everybody, please go rush to get that awful, awful movie. But the thing is, that's not actually the words of the prophecy itself. That's just how the Witch King seems to remember it. Matt, can you pull up the actual prophecy?
Absolutely. For that, let's go to Appendix A, Annals of the Kings and Rulers, in the section Gondor and the Heirs of Anarion. Here we learn that after the defeat of Angmar, the Witch King himself appeared on the field.
Yeah.
Black-robed and black-masked upon a black horse.
Yeah, the guy's fashion palette was a little thin.
Yeah. I mean, he knows what his color is and he sticks with it.
You open up his closet, he's got 20 black robes. That's it. Nothing else. Anyway.
He drove off Eärnur, whose horse couldn't endure the approach of the Witch King. Shout out to Shadowfax.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Standing there like a graven image in Roth Deenan. Shadowfax for the win.
Then we read, Then the Witch King laughed, and none that heard it ever forgot the horror of that cry. But Glorfindel rode up then on his white horse, and in the midst of his laughter, the Witch King turned to flight and passed into the shadows. For night came down on the battlefield, and he was lost, and none saw whither he went. Eärnur now rode back, but Glorfindel, looking into the gathering dark, said, "Do not pursue him. He will not return to this land. Far off yet is his doom, and not by the hand of man will he fall." These words many remembered, but Eärnur was angry, desiring only to be avenged for his disgrace. So that's the prophecy. Not by the hand of man will the Witch King fall.
Which maybe suggests that Éomer could have just kicked him in the head, because it wouldn't have been by the hand of man. No, I don't think that's the point. But the thing is, this prophecy, this version of the prophecy, is repeated by Gandalf in one of his face-offs against Denethor, who suggests that Gandalf withdrew because he was overmatched by the Witch King. "It might be so," Gandalf answered softly, "but our trial of strength is not yet come. And if words spoken of old be true, not by the hand of man shall he fall, and hidden from the wise is the doom that awaits him." So that is the prophecy, right? That not by the hand of man will he fall, even if the Witch King remembers it a little differently or with a little bit extra.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like Gandalf almost seems to be lumping himself into that.
Yeah.
Not by the hand of man.
Well, and in a
because
way he really is.
He's in man form.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And more than just man form, right? I mean, I think of form as the form or shape that an Ainu takes when they're on Arda, right? So they're in a form. I think of Melian in her form, or I think of even Sauron and how his form, he's now stuck, right? Or Morgoth, one of the Valar, who gets stuck in the form that he was in. Gandalf was actually incarnated, genuinely put into a flesh and bone body before he was sent here, which is why when he fought with the Balrog and died, he literally died. He didn't
actually
have to go get embodied. He had to go to the halls, the timeless halls, where Iluvatar himself was like, "All right, it's time for an upgrade. Now that you're
Get
here,
back in the game,
we're going to update
buddy.
the OS to G2.0. But yeah, so he really was in the form of man. Not a mortal man, quite the same. Yes, he could be killed, but he wasn't going to die of old age like a regular man. But he was definitely incarnate. Yeah.
So if the prophecy is not by the hand of man shall he fall, then the men of Dunharrow, living or dead, would not have been able to harm him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I land. I still think that the dead men could cause physical harm to living men. I believe that the footnote about Baldur having his legs broken there by that evil temple, that still convinces me. But they couldn't have harmed the Witch King because alive or dead, they're still men. And that doesn't fit with the prophecy.
It is interesting to me, the fact that in this hypothetical scenario, we've got the Witch King and the dead men who both are stretched beyond their mortal lifespan by oaths or powers that are greater than themselves. And it's kind of interesting that we have,
That's an interesting thought.
These men stretched beyond by Sauron on one end and others stretched beyond by Isildur, actually.
Or by Iluvatar, if you want to, lay it at the feet of the one who could actually do anything about it. I mean, that's the thing about these oaths, right? I mean, Isildur causes the...
Right. It's not Isildur's power of his own, but it's, he's the one who entered into this oath with them.
Exactly.
And it's the power of those oaths. But
because all oaths basically call on Iluvatar for enforcement, and hence Iluvatar says, "All right, fine, you didn't keep your oath. Here's the consequence."
But then we've got Sauron funneling power into the Witch King in a way that nobody is for the dead men. So I still think in that hypothetical scenario, Witch King probably comes out.
I think so. But also, of course, just because the prophecy itself. I mean, that's the thing. Glorfindel somehow, in some gift of foresight that he was given, who knows how specific he knew. Whether he knew it was going to be a woman and a hobbit, or whether he thought it might be a dwarf or an elf, or whether he thought it was going to be some divine intervention, a lightning stroke or something like that. Who knows what he thought? We only know what he said, and he said that not by the hand of man will he fall. It is still a good question, though, Chelsea, and I really do appreciate it. I think it's a fun question to think about. Would Merry still figure in the encounter if the men of Dunharrow were involved? I hope so, because it would be the only chance they'd have. I mean, it was Merry's, use of that blade of Westerness that, unknit the sinews of the Witch King and enabled Eowyn's killing blow to actually do the job. That's the only way that they would have had a shot. But yeah, interesting question. Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Please, though, be sure to join us again next week when Eärendil makes a guest appearance.
Reminding Sam of a very important truth, and I can't wait for that. Now, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Rannells, Barlaman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
Please take a minute to check out theprancingponypodcast.com. Now, that's where you're going to find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, as well as our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch, including the all-new chapter art from Megan.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, after all, a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. We do get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, and Zaksu in Illinois.
There's also Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Keith in Alabama, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, Christiana from Ohio, John from Japan, Olivia in London, Jackson in Tennessee, and Robert in Arizona. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
One last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, how you think that Nazgûl broke the news to Sauron to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. Yeah, that would not have been a good conversation. Boss. So it seems that, well...
You know how that Witch-king guy does a really good job for you?
I'm available if you want to promote me. Thanks, Kamul. All right. Of course, if you want your voice literally heard, please send us audio of your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barlaman, though. Even though Barlaman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through, and we'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
Indeed. As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
This is the end. We are going. We are leaving now. Goodbye.